Hello and welcome to this new video for me. Today we are in the top 4 of the Rands Slam and our opponent today is Teres Bahji, one of the best random battles players on the website because he has won the most room tours on the Pokemon Showdown Random Battles Room by far. So this is going to be a tough opponent, and the formats for today are the Battle Factory Open, so once again the competitive random battles kind of, and we play one of Generation 6, 7 and 8. The Battle Spot Singles Factory, which is just Battle Spot Singles where you have 6 Pokemon and you bring 3 on level 50. Then we've got the Generation 9 Open, Generation 9 Doubles as a new time, or as a new thing kind of, and multi-hackmons, the pure random-based format. Can we win 3 out of these 5? I really hope so, because if we do, we emerge into the finals, and that would be really dope. But let's see how it went. As you can hear, I'm still a little sick, but that doesn't change the matter of fact that I want to upload this video today. So the first format I chose was Generation 8 Battle Factory because Generation 9 Battle Spot Singles Factory and Doubles is just one single format. For the Battle Factory Open, you can choose between Generation 6, 7 and 8, and that's why I choose the generation I'm most confident in. As you can see in the chat, I am typing in some commands to prepare myself for the battle. First, I use /show_team. The opponent cannot see what I did, but I used that to see my team, copy it into the calculator so that I can calculate the damage faster, and then I look up all the sets my opponent can have. So we see Rotom has 2 different sets, Entei only has 1, Toxicroak has 2, Registeel has up to 4 sets, Tornadus has 2, and Tyrantrum has 2. I did the sets for myself as well because I wanted to check what he can know. Like, does he know that Toxicroak can have a special set? Because I have a special set and I know that he knows, but I could also have a physical set, and he surely knows the command, right? So that's why I looked up pretty much everything on my side and everything on his side. So what's the game plan? Registeel looks really good into the Indeedee. I have to keep it healthy for that, as well as the Poltergeist, because if the Poltergeist gets a Shell Smash off, we run into big problems. Yeah, and as we can see for my opponent, he has a lot of Pokemon that only have 1 set. The only one that has 2 sets is Indeedee. Like, Rhyperior is always specially defensive with Stealth Rocks. Dhelmise always carries Rapid Spin. Klefki has Spikes. Grimmsnarl, this is a little bit surprising. Grimmsnarl is always Choice Bandit. And Poltergeist always has Shell Smash. So as you can see here, the Dhelmise always carries Synthesis as well. Something to keep in mind because it can stay healthy. And the cool part is that none of his Pokemon have recovery other than the Dhelmise. I guess Rhyperior with leftovers, Klefki with leftovers, but they have no recovery move. But the same goes for myself. Yeah, here you can see the Grimmsnarl set with Choice Band, but also no Sucker Punch, which I can really take advantage of. But what's my game plan? My game plan here is to chip down the Rhyperior and then maybe win with Entei. Because as you can see, Choice Band Sacred Fire, especially if the Indeedee is Choice Specs, hits everything super hard. Dhelmise dies, Klefki dies, Indeedee dies, Poltergeist dies, Grimmsnarl takes 80 because it has no defensive investment. The only thing that stands in its way is the Viperia. But also the Viperia doesn't want to switch into a Sacred Fire because it can get burned. And that's why I lead Rotom, because I knew he has to lead something that's good into the Entei. And now I have to make a decision. Do I just click Leaf Storm? But it is so obvious that he will switch out. And that's why I click Volt Switch, and that worked perfectly. Now I can either go to Registeel to get the rocks up, or I go to Entei, but then I might take a T-Wave, but maybe it's a good trade to trade Klefki with Entei, because then the Thunder Wave threat is also gone, and Tyrantrum looks a little better as well. And that's why I decided to go Entei. I used Sacred Fire. Do I get the 50% burn? I don't. I go for it again because I predict Stealth Rock, and I don't get it again, which is a little bit unfortunate, but we dodge the Stone Edge, which is very lucky. Yeah, now it's pretty obvious that he won't stay again, but I still decided to click Leaf Storm, which is in hindsight not a good play. Now I can Volt Switch to Tornadus though, because for him maybe he thinks that Poltergeist is super free, but my Tornadus has no item. Oh man, talking is hard. But now I have a lot of options. I can either go for Knockoff and knock the leftovers from either Viperia or Klefki, or I can go for U-turn to get switch advantage. So I decide to go for the knockoff play, because that is better long term. And now I was sure that he would click Spikes, and I thought I want to get as much damage as possible on the Klefki, and that's why I superpowered. Instead he goes for Dazzling Gleam, but that is also fine. And now on the Spikes or Thunder Wave I go to Rotom, and I can defog the Stealth Rocks, which is pretty nice. The problem now is that Tornadus dies to a Power Whip. Do I need Tornadus healthy? Kind of, especially because with Specs and DD, if it is Specs, can be really threatening if Registeel gets low because of the Poltergeist. I was muted the whole time for the last turns. That's rough. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, basically, I was a little surprised that he went Dhelmise on the Toxicroak, because I thought Focus Blast is too obvious to click, so he might stay, just go for Earthquake, but he switched to Dhelmise, which was really good. And also, the Acrobatics was really bad. I should have just U-turned there, I think, and losing Rotom is a little unfortunate. Now Stealth Rocks are up as well, and I have some problems to get back into the game. So, yeah, the Klefki is low, which is great for Tyrantrum, because if I get a Dragon Dance up, I KO everything. But he goes to Indeedee here, and I'm a little surprised, because I could just go for U-turn But what I can also do is that I hard switch to Registeel because it's still full life. And as we can see here, this is not choice bags. This is actually a choice scarf indeed, which makes my life very hard. Because if it was choice specs, I could have just went Entei, sacrifice, 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 win. But since it's choice scarf, the Indeedee outspeeds the Entei. And it's also bad for Tyrantrum because if I set up a Dragon Dance, I'm still slower than the Indeedee. And here it comes, and I can just go to Registeel again. And now the question is, do I double switch to Entei because he will go to Dhelmise most likely? Or does he predict my Entei switch and I should stay? I decide to go for Stealth Walk because I am very sure that he stays, but he's switched to Dhelmise again. If I went Entei, I would have been in a prime position. But with that, I force him to click Rapid Spin, and I can claim just another KO with Sacred Fire now. What is he going to toss? It's the Dhelmise, that makes sense. And since I lost my removal, my Entei is basically dead. And I only have 2 Sacred Fire left as well, which is pretty funny. And that's why I decide to just click Sacred Fire and toss the Entei. The problem is Tyrantrum, Toxicroak, Tornadus. They all die to Expanding Force. So I really need the Registeel for the Indeedee. But if Poltergeist gets a Shell Smash up, everything in my team dies to Poltergeist, but for Registeel. So Registeel kind of has to carry against both Indeedee and Poltergeist, which is still possible at this point, but it's very hard. He goes to Grimmsnarl on the Heavy Slam, and now I just switch to Toxicroak. I don't need Toxicroak for anything, and just not take any damage with Registeel. And Tornadus and Tyrantrum would have died to Superpower, so that's why I decided to go to Toxicroak. I go for Sludge Bomb here, but the problem now is that the Poltergeist, as you can see on my screen, it always carries Strength Sap. And because of that, I lose because he has Cursed Body as an ability, and since Registeel has Clear Body, he can just spam Strength Sap until my Heavy Slam gets disabled. Tyrantrum dies to Shadow Ball, Tornadus dies to Shadow Ball, and with that we pretty much lose the game. But he doesn't go for Strength Sap, and I am surprised. Now, Registeel has to survive 2 Expanding Forces, and if it does, I can 2 KO the Indeedee with Heavy Slam. The first does 16, and the second one does 18, and with that, we win the game. And that was really, really, really close, because if this would have been a crit, both my Pokemon died to Expanding Force. So we win game 1, but that was so close. And we got a little lucky that he didn't click Strength Sap onto my Registeel. Maybe he predicted a Toxic, but even if I go for Toxic, he can then spam Shadow Ball, and Toxic will not do enough damage in this short period of time. But yeah. Now we are in Hackmons Cup, Gen 9 Doubles Hackmons Cup to be precise. He chose that format, and I get the lead Quagsire Walls, and I have pretty nice Pokemon in the back with Clodsire and Mew, as well as Basculin Hisui. I take a look at all my sets. Milk Drink, Take Heart, Clodsire is really, really nice with Mummy as an ability. We've got Searching Strikes Mew. Unfortunately, we have Power Band as an item, which halves our speed, but that's fine. We've got an all-white Ekans. Ekans doesn't have the best stats, but Basculin Hisui with these moves is also pretty cool. I decide to use Whirlpool Smackdown, while the Delibird goes for Knockoff, and Smackdown does a decent chunk, and Whirlpool hits the Oinkolone to get a little bit damage as well and trap it on the field. Since he switched right on to Oinkolone, I thought maybe he goes for a Grass type move now, but instead he goes for Knockoff. I go for Secret Sword, my Walls outspeeds Oinkolone, and he has Takedown, Step Takedown, and he KOs my walls with it, but I get good damage on the Oink alone as well as the Delibird. And I saw that the walls outsped the Oink alone, so I just have to use something that's faster than it, and Ekans is. Do I have something that outspeeds the Delibird? Maybe the Basculin does, right? So that's why I decided to go Basculin, I think. Yeah. And the cool part is that since I set up the Psychic Terrain with Quagsire, I can use Steel Roller. Behemoth Blade is the strongest move onto Iron Cologne because Rock Smash. Our Basculin outspeeds first of all, KOs with Delibird, and Ekans KOs Iron Cologne. Behemoth Blade is stronger than like Rock Smash, even though it's super effective because Rock Smash is 40 times 2 is 80, and Behemoth Blade is straight up 100. Now we see Sinistcha and Flamigo joining the field, and that is really scary. He only has Rhydon and one last Pokemon left, so we are up 4 against 5, but hitting the Sinistcha is a challenge because a lot of our Pokemon cannot hit it, but Ekans dodges the Dragon Rush and we get a Dazzling Gleam off, and the Spatial Rend does a lot of damage onto the Basculin. But now the Flamigo is probably in Dazzling Gleam range, right? And one Dragon Rush is probably not enough to KO the Basculin. So, do I want to keep the Basculin? I might, but I thought getting the KO on the Flamigo is just way too valuable. I also get some damage on the Sinistcha, while he KOs my Basculin. But now he only has Rhydon and Sinistcha left. Even though I don't have a lot of moves to hit the Sinistcha with, I still have a Mew. Mew can like poison it with Poison Sting, or I can get rid of Pawmi with Searching Strikes first. He goes for Spatial Rend and Pollen Puff and has Wonder Guard on his Pawmi? What? What? Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at our team. Okay, Walls, no, Basculin, okay, wait. I literally had nothing to hit the Pawmi with. I go for Searching Strikes into Sinistcha, and I hope that I can like maybe beat the Pawmi, but how? And the problem is, my team also has nothing for the Sinistcha. Like, I still try here to maybe get the KO with Mirror Coat on the Sinistcha, but even if I go Terra Dragon to not get hit by the Pollen Puff, Spatial Rend will just KO me. So, yeah. Wonder Guard Electric type with Pollen Puff. So, he can do damage, he can heal its partners, and, like, what am I supposed to do? If I don't have a ground move or something like Toxic, Will-O-Wisp, Sandstorm, you saw my team. I literally, without, also with Sinistcha has a Quick Claw, which is pretty funny. But you can see it here. I don't have to say anything. I can just let this, I can just show this to you and like, say, yay, I use Milk Drink with Clodsire, and maybe I can PP store with Pawmi, but I PP stored the Spatial Rends from Sinistcha, but it doesn't matter, because the Quagsire cannot heal itself, and he can just double up on the Quagsire to force a 2v1 situation, and yeah, I tell him, I literally had nothing, so I had one thing, okay? So, I had Neutralizing Gas on the Basculin. If this Basculin had a different ability, I would have just lost on the spot. But I had to keep Basculin to get rid of the Pawmi. Because if Basculin is on the field, yeah, Neutralizing Gas. Because if Basculin is on the field, all abilities do not work, including Wonder Guard. But once Basculin is off the field or it is fainted, I cannot touch the Pawmi. So yeah, that was really rough and not fun at all. Like, Wonder Guard, if it's a Pokemon with a lot of weaknesses, it's fine, but it only has one weakness. Wonder Guard, Electric type, of course. Now, since we only have formats left where we cannot choose between generations or multiple formats, I go for BSS Factory because I want to keep Generation 9 Random Battle as my ace up in my sleeve, you know. And I was not very keen on playing doubles right now, and that's why I went with this format. And as we can see, he has very strong Pokemon: Garganacl, Tinglu, Bascule Legion, Cloyster, Chiempao, and Ogapon Half-Flame. I use the same command as before, or like not the same, but I use a command before again to see what possible sets my opponent can have. And I have on my side a Gyarados, a Cloyster, a Sneasel, a Gliscor, a Annihilate, and a Chiyu. And I have to make decisions, right? Because I can only bring 3 Pokemon out of 6. So we've got a Walkiam, a Gyarados, which is fine but not great. We've got Shell Smash Cloyster, which is good in theory, but since we are Live Orb, it's very hard to get a Shell Smash off. We've got Sneasel with Toxic Spikes, but Garganacl, for example, isn't even affected by Toxic Spikes. We've got Gliscor with Subtoxic Protect EQ, which is a fine Pokemon, but there are a lot of Pokemon that are annoying for it, like Chiempao and Cloyster and Bascule Legion, so I kind of have to Terra it. But T-Spikes are great to remove that many Focus Sashes. And I use Gliscor because I think Terra Water Gliscor is amazing in this matchup. And as the last Pokemon, I go with Annihilate because I think Stealth Walks are also really good because they hit Cloyster, Chiempao, and Ogapon for super effective damage. But we see a Cloyster lead immediately, and I'm like, okay, what set can you have? You can be Terra Ghost with Shell Smash. Does he Shell Smash turn 1? Maybe. Should I set up Toxic Spikes? Probably not. And because I could go for Fake Out into close combat, I could KO the Cloyster, but it's not unlikely for him to go for a Terra Ghost if he has it. And if he is something like Terra Electric, he might switch out. And that's why I go for Diaclaw. He goes Ghost Terra. I had a 50% chance for something to proc. So that is a little unfortunate. But now I go to Annihilate, and I could go Terra Steel to resist Icicle Spear and not die to Terra Blast, because as you can see on my screen, it can either be Drill Ball, Ice Shot, or Terra Blast. But I decided to just go for Rage Fist, because I knew that I have to keep the Terra for my Gliscor, in case he has something like Chiempao or Bascule Legion. So yeah, the cool part now is, since he hit me 5 times, my Rage Fist is very strong. I have a 5 times boosted Rage Fist now, and Garganacl comes in, which is a little bit unfortunate because it resists Rage Fist with its ability, but Drain Punch is still super effective, does a decent chunk, but he has Iron Defense, and Rage Fist is exactly as strong as Drain Punch. As you can see, 300 divided by 2 is 150, and Drain Punch is also 150. I set up Stealth Walks to get a Sash on something, and now I wanted to force a Recover to get a free switch on Gliscor, and he goes for a Recover, and now the not so pretty part begins. Since the substitute doesn't break by 1 Soul Cure, I can actually PP stall that Garganacl. Since I know what the moveset is. It's Soul Cure, Recover, Iron Defense, Body Press. So if we count our PP, let's check. So we have 15, 14, 14, and 16, I think 15, 16, 14, 15. So we have a total of 60 PP at this point, and he has a total of, let's see, we go for substitute because I expected him to not spam body press. He has a total of 50 PP, since recover only has 8, which is a huge advantage for me. I have to be a little careful though, because if he uses Iron Defense on all my protects, he can break the sub with every body press he uses, and then go for Salt Cure when I don't have any substitute PP left. But the cool part is that if I just get the turns correct, I will win the PP war. Since at this point he has 59 and I have 27, 40, 55. You would say that's not a win, but I will have enough PP so that he will run out of PP as well, and then I can maybe win with Annihilate, since Annihilate can also just 1v1 Basque Legion if it's not Choice Scarf, since we are faster. It can 1v1 Tinglu, and against Chiempao, maybe he goes for Icicle Crash and I can use my Terra Steel. So that was my thought process. And I can also switch to Annihilate on a body press or something. But he played it really well here. Goes to Basque Legion on my Protect. And now I go for Protect to get Leftovers Recovery. And I go for Terra Water now to resist the Wave Crash. He could also be not Choice Scarf. As you can see here, I scroll up to check all the Basque Legion sets. So Choice Scarf, 20%. Could be that set. It could also be one of the other sets. He has committed Terra, which is good, because Terra Water Wave Crash would deal even more damage. And I used this time to calc if Earthquake is a 2 KO. It isn't, that's why I go for Toxic and I miss the Toxic. And with that, we see that it is not Choice Scarf because I outsped, but I missed the Toxic, which is really tough. Earthquake got a max roll actually here, and so it could have been a 2 KO, but it was very unlikely, and that's why I wanted to use Toxic first, then Protect and all that stuff. But now I get the KO on Basque Legion, which is great, and against the Garganical, it's still the same thing. I lost a little bit of power points, but I can still go for this Annihilate plan. We still have to respect now that Soul Cure is doing more damage since we are water type. I decided to go for Earthquake because if he doesn't go for Iron Defense, I might be able to 2-hit KO him. But he clicked Iron Defense and now I fish for a critical hit. I don't get it. And I could go for another Earthquake to fish for a critical hit, but I wanted to go for Substitute in case he goes for Soul Cure, but he goes for Body Press. And this is kind of doomed because he has more PP than I do, but he also only has 6 more Body Presses. So my Substitute will stay alive, and I decide to go Annihilate first to drain some PP from the Garganical here. That was my plan with Annihilate, and I get a critical hit. And I think it didn't matter. He had 36, 42, 47 left, and I think my Glide score had 17, 28, 42 left. So it actually did matter. Never mind. But there was literally nothing I could do than get a critical hit with either Annihilate or Glide score. Let me think. Yeah. Well, even if I struggle, if I have a Substitute up, I only take 12% recoil, kind of, because I have Poison Heal, and so I can struggle for multiple turns, while he can only struggle for like 3 turns. But I don't deny that I got very lucky here. But sometimes you have to get that lucky. But can I get that lucky in this game as well? Because it's a match point. We are up 2-1, and I use Draco Meteor with Regidrago because if you saw correctly, I didn't have good ones into Dragon Energy, and I go for Poison Gas, with which I poison both my opponent's Pokemon and confuse them. Petulant is so nasty. It is insane. And Now our Duraludon is at -2 special attack, -1 speed. My Petulant is at -1 speed. So it would make sense to switch, but the problem is I have no switch-ins. Like, switching Blaziken into this board state is really bad. Masquerain is possible. I go to Cleaver on the Archaludon slot and Masquerain on the Petulant slot because I thought maybe he goes for a special psychic move on the Petulant, and I would much rather Masquerain. I would much rather have Masquerain take it than Cleaver, and now he hits himself on Confusion as well. And I can use Stone Eggs to get Stealth Rocks up as well, which is even nastier with Petulant. And we also have Intimidate support with Masquerain. And the question is, do I stay with Masquerain? Do I try to set up a Quiver Dance? I do set up a Quiver Dance because that counters the Icy Wind, kind of. And I can get the Stealth Rock up with Stone Eggs. But I also get Muddy Watered and get an accuracy drop on the Masquerain, which isn't great, but as long as I connect my moves, it's fine. Now, the problem is Cleaver would die to everything the Quillfish uses as well as the Whiscash. That's why I switched to Golduck, because Golduck has a decent matchup here, and I decide to go for another Quiver Dance because I survive the Gunk Shot, I survive the Icy Wind, but he gets the Poison. And the Gunk Shot was also a really good roll, and that's why my Masquerain dies. I got a little greedy, which was not needed, but it is okay. Because now I have Golduck in. Golduck has Icy Wind support, as well as Grass Knot for the Whiscash. And since both Pokemon here are physical, I could also go to Duraludon and use Icy Wind and Iron Defense, because then he cannot taunt my Duraludon, and then Body Press can start to wake up, and I miss the Quillfish with Icy Wind. And what does the Quillfish go for? It goes for Icy Wind itself. And the problem now is the Quillfish outspeeds both my Pokemon and can get an Icy Wind off before I can get a Grass Knot or a Hydro Pump off. And that's why I go for Grass Knot into Whiscash. I go for Icy Wind again, and I miss it again on the Quillfish. If I miss on the Whiscash, it's fine, but I miss on the Quillfish. Because if I hit the Quillfish, then Golduck outspeeds it, can KO it with Hydro Pump, and Duraludon can KO the Whiscash, but now the Quillfish gets another move off, or it can switch and keep the Intimidate, which is really sad. I ignored the Whiscash because I thought it's okay to ignore it, because now I can get a double KO. I go for Grass Knot onto Slowbro, Body Press onto Whiscash. I could have also go for like Grass Knot onto Whiscash and Draco Meteor, but I can keep my special attack by doing that. And now we see Frostnest and Regidrago. And the bad part is that Dragon Energy still is super scary for me. Duraludon doesn't even have Protect, so the Duraludon will die here, unless I decide to toss Cleaver. So in hindsight, I think it makes more sense to toss Cleaver, because Duraludon is faster, has more health, and has a stronger move in like Draco Meteor. But Life Orb Accessor also does a decent chunk. So yeah, I decided to give him the double knockout, because now I can go to Blaziken and Petulant, and with Blaziken Petulant I can just go for a double protected first, or I have to protect Blaziken, but with Petulant I can also attack, because we saw that the Regidrago has locked itself into Dragon Energy, and after Poltergeist, my Citrus Berry would activate and I would survive with Dragon Energy. But he goes for Terra Dragon, that's why double protecting was better, and now I have to make a decision. Do I go for Terra Fighting CC to KO the Regidrago, or do I go for Heat Wave because he might switch and then I take too much damage? I don't know if he knows all the sets. Based on how he played in the Battle Factory game, I got a little scared to go for a predict. As you can see, I'm like canceling, and I'm really keen on going for a Heat Wave. But then I was like, he might just stay. Because my Blaziken is faster than Regidrago now, and he switches to Quillfish. And that is really bad. Because if I would have clicked Heatwave here, I can tell you I would have won the game. But it's still not lost. But he gets a critical hit on Petulant. And with that, now that we are intimidated, Petulant dies to pretty much everything. And I have to somehow cover a Dragon Claw into Petulant, but also a Poltergeist into Blaziken. So this is really tricky now, because Regidrago survives the close combat, and I could go for Heatwave, but if I go for Heatwave, Dragon Energy would still get a double knockout. Maybe I can get a Heatwave crit on Regidrago, so Blaziken survives, and next turn I can take out the Regidrago. So that's why I go for Heatwave, but I miss. And as you can see, he locked himself into Dragon Claw. So if I hit this Heatwave, the Regidrago would have been in poison range, but since I didn't get the Malignant Chain Poison anyways, I just lose if he targets correctly. Since both of his Pokemon are faster, I decide to go for Terran Protect, because I still have a chance if he doubles up on the Petulant, because when I KO the Regidrago with X-Scissor, I get a Malignant Chain off onto the Zapdos, and then I get either another Malignant Chain off or a Stone Axe. But he makes it correct. He goes for a correct play. Dragon Claw with Cleaver, Brave Bird with Petulant, because with that it was just unwinnable. But I still decided to play it out, because maybe he misclicks, maybe he doesn't see it, and now the series is tied up again, 2-2, and we go to Generation 9 Random Battles as the decider. Can I win in my own format, basically? Let's see. We've got Deoxys against Lucario as a lead, and that is a good lead for me, because Terra Fighting Superpower technically one-hit KOs Lucario, but it's never clever to go for the Terra in the first turn. So I still have the Focus Sash on Deoxys, so I'm not even worried about something like a Swords Dance into Extreme Speed combination, because if he goes for Swords Dance, then I can also use the Terra if I wanted to. We also got Petulant again, and he goes to Vespiquen on my spikes, and Vespiquen is a little annoying, but I have a toxic immunity with Petulant. But he U-turns immediately, but what does he U-turn to? He probably goes to something that will take spikes damage, right? And it's Porygon, and it has download, and I was like, I could go for Malignant Chain and try to fish for a poison, but he will probably go for Thunder Wave, and against Thunder Wave I have an immunity in Rhyperior, and since he revealed Thunder Wave, I also know that it doesn't have Ice Beam, because there are only 2 Porygon sets, Tri Attack, Discharge, Ice Beam, Recover, or Thunder Wave, Terra Blast, Shadow Ball, Recover. And now I can just spam Earthquake. I'm fine if he goes to Vespiquen, as long as this Porygon is low. That is really good, because then +2 Malignant Chain, for example, KOs it, and I decide to go for another Earthquake, because I predicted him to go for U-turn. He just used Spikes, and now I go for another Earthquake, but this time it works, but it also doesn't, because he has Corviknight. Really, really bad sequencing, but against Corviknight I can always go to Petulant. The problem is he goes to Vespiquen. That's not the problem. I can just go for Nasty Plot now. I didn't want to go for Malignant Chain, because Vespiquen has Pressure as an ability, and it only has 8 PP, and I need the power points for Porygon, but he U-turned to Scream Tail, and since he went Scream Tail, I knew that he will go for Anchor, and I clicked Blood Moon now, because I wanted to get damage on with Screen Tail and force it to stay, and now I decide to go for Shadow Ball, because I was sure that he won't switch to Porygon. Instead he switches to Vespiquen, and now I was like, okay, I need a poison, and I get the poison, which is a 50% chance. I also get the confusion by doing that, and now I go for Nasty Plot again. The confusion ends, and he can U-turn to Screamtail again. If he hit himself here, I would have been in a great position, but instead he goes to Gengar. And I could go Terra Dark Shadow Ball to KO the Gengar, but then Screamtail hits me for super effective damage, and that's why I go to Ursaluna. The problem is Focus Blast KOs me here. If he has a Life Orb, I would just die to Focus Blast, but he also has to respect that I could Terra to a defensive Terra, or I can switch out again. And that's why he switched to Screamtail. I went for Blood Moon into Earth Power to force the Screamtail in again, because I don't want the Porygon to get the Wish. Since I used Defog here, this was pretty much all for nothing, because he will go to Porygon here, and I knew that. And I was, at this point, I was like, okay, para me, if I get a Poison on the Porygon too, I am more than happy. I get the Poison. And he can also hit himself now. He doesn't, but this trade is actually good for me, because this Porygon 2 was really hard to break for me, and I go for Shadow Ball because, as I said, the Porygon 2 probably, as I said, I don't have that much Malignant Chain PP, and I was sure that he will switch, and I can just spam Shadow Ball a little bit, because Vespiquen also only has 8 Woost PP, and I clicked Nasty Plot here, and if I didn't get parried, I would have gotten a KO the next turn pretty much by going for Malignant Chain, but now I am kind of scared of getting Shadow Balled, and that's why I switched to Ursaluna. And with Ursaluna, I can just go for Core Mind, Earth Power, Blood Moon. I decided to click Blood Moon, and now I decide to go for Core Mind because I want him to use Anchor, because he has to use the Anchor PP for both Petulant and Ursaluna, and it only has 8. So if he runs out of Anchor PP, I can just win maybe with one out of these two. So here I decide to go for, I think it was Nasty Plot again, but I get parried anyways. And this is tricky. I can go to Rhyperior because he doesn't have a good Stone Edge switch in, and I survive another move from the Porygon, which is a Shadow Ball. I connect with Stone Edge, and now I have to make a decision. Do I want to stay with Rhyperior? Because if I stay, I lose it. But I decided to switch to Cramorant, and that was amazing. Because Cramorant doesn't need to be full life. It kind of does, because there's still Lucario and Gengar. But keeping this sacrifice in Rhyperior can be detrimental for the end game. So the problem now is he goes to Gengar, and that shows me that he has choice specs, I think. I can go for Terra Ground to survive a Sludge Wave, but I can also go for Ursaluna because he won't click Focus Blast here, and he is indeed choice specs Gengar. And now I can just use Core Mind again, because as I said, with Core Mind, I force the Screamtail to go for Anchor. And if he goes to Corviknight, I can just set up more Core Minds. But I thought he would switch to Screamtail, and that's why I used Blood Moon. And now this situation is a little tricky. I use Moonlight again, and here I can just use Core Mind because I want him to go for Anchor. I don't need all my Moonlight PP, and I go to Cramorant because I thought if he goes for Wish, I can boost up my Cramorant, but he goes to Lucario instead. I can just go for Surf, and against Screamtail, I just go for Boost, and now I'm out of range for the Gengar, which is also really important. I switched to Houndstone because I expected him to go to Corviknight, but now that is also fine because I get a KO with Poltergeist, but I don't because I miss. And that is so upsetting because I'm Choice Bandit. You see the damage. Imagine I hit the first one. I can get rid of one of the problem Pokemon. Vespiquen, you saw how much this Vespiquen did already. Screamtail like nothing. But he doesn't U-turn into Gengar to threaten a KO with Shadow Ball. He instead U-turns to Corviknight, which is super weird because I can tell you something. Poltergeist KOs Corviknight. And now I am in a very good position. Like, Poltergeist always claims a KO, and I could go for Terra Fighting to get the KO on Gengar, but I can also use my sacrifice right now. he goes for Shadow Ball. So I could have also switched to Ursaluna, but if he catches this switch once with Focus Blast, I will always lose one Pokemon to Shadow Ball. And that's what I didn't want, and that's why I decided to go to Rhyperior. Now I can go to Ursaluna or Deoxys, because Deoxys is faster, can get the KO with Psycho Boost, but I saw this Lucario, and this Lucario is actually very threatening. If it is Terra Normal, if I get a KO with Houndstone, with Poltergeist for example, he can go for Terra Normal Swords Dance, and I lose my Sash on Deoxys because of the spikes, and that's why I decided to go Ursaluna and keep the Focus Sash on my Deoxys, because if I use Defog, as I do here, I have the Focus Sash intact with Deoxys, and that can be pretty important against the Lucario. I just go for Surf here, and he anchors me into Surf, and I'm fine with that, because I'm still not in range for Gengar, but at the same time, I decided to switch to Petulant, because I thought if he uses Dazzling Gleam and I'm at 50% and I'm still anchored to Surf, that is really bad. Now he used Wish to go into Vespiquen, but he only has 7 wishes left and 4 anchors, and he gets a critical hit here, which is really bad. Now the good part about all this is that I get a critical hit back, and if he uses Dazzling Gleam, now what he does, I get a Pikachu in my mouth, and that is perfect, because I can now just spam Surf, and if he ever attacks me with Scream Tail again, he gets parried, and that would be great. And he doesn't have a good Surf switch in as well, because he also doesn't want Gengar to get parried, right? He gets the Cursed Body, and that is terrible, because he can go for Trick, and if I didn't get Cursed Bodied, I could have just KO'd the Gengar the next turn, and if he just KOs my Cramorant, he gets parried, and if the Gengar is parried, the only threat on my opponent's team dies. So yeah, actually Lucario is still a threat. I go to Cramorant here to maybe get a boost on his boost, but he makes a smart play by using U-turn and going to Gengar again. I go to Ursaluna while he goes for Sludge Wave, and I was like, okay, does he go for Focus Blast? Probably not, because if I use my Terra, it would be now. So that's why I just go for War Blood Moon, because Vespiquen would die, and he goes for Focus Blast and misses, and that is very lucky. But now Lucario joins the field, and Lucario is a big problem. I can use Houndstone and go for Body Press, but instead I go to Deoxys, and since he set up the Sword Stance, I was like, okay, I don't need the Terra at all. I won't Terra Petulant because he still has Scream Tail left. Using the Terra with Specs Ursaluna is weird. I probably also doesn't have the time to Terra the Cramorant, and Terra fighting on the Houndstone is also not very good into the Scream Tail, and that's why I go for Terra fighting on the Deoxys here, and he goes for Terra Normal E-Speed, but that's why I kept my Deoxys for the full time at full health, and I KO the Lucario here. And now he only has Vespiquen and Scream Tail left, and with Petulant I resist Dazzling Gleam, and now I can just spam Milligan and Chain. I will maybe get a Confusion and a Poison on the Scream Tail, and if I get the KO on the Vespiquen here, it's over anyways, and I don't get parried, and to no surprise, this Scream Tail doesn't have enough PP to KO all my Pokemon, and with that, we win the set 3-2. This was such a nail biter. Like, I got super lucky with Focus Blast misses. He got super lucky with Wonder Guard Pawmi. Overall, a very crazy set. A lot of back and forth, but this is what a semifinals in the Rands Slam should look like. But now we made it into the finals, and our opponent is the one and only Drifting. I think the best Oceanian Randbats player out there, and it's a best of 5, which player is going to be crowned as the next Rands Slam champion. Stay tuned because you will find out in exactly 7 days on Friday at 6 p.m. Central European Time. I really hope I can win this one because I've been so close so many times. This is the 4th iteration of the Rands Slam, and 3 times now I came to top 8 in all 3. I think I came to semifinals in one of them as well, and now I stand in the finals for the first time, and I really, really, really want to win this one. I don't know the formats yet. I will find out in a little bit, in a few days, and then I will play against him in a few days as well. I really hope I can win this one because it would really mean a lot to me. I hope I will see you there, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode again, and wish me best of luck for my finals, and yeah, good night.